Welcome to a special episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. In our bonus episodes, we like to give some airtime to stories and individuals that are doing something just that little bit special. Today's guest is Dan Brookman, serial entrepreneur and CEO of tech superstars Airship and Toggle. Coming up on today's show, Dan demonstrates what you have to face if you want to be known as tenacious.
The police were chuckling at me. Yeah, they thought it was hilarious. The planners thought it was hilarious. You know, the papers thought it was hilarious.
Phil goes on the offensive. Dan, you're a nutter. Stop what you're doing immediately. And Phil and Dan show that they might be the solution to some bigger problems. Solving some problems today.
Yeah, very good. Love it. We should have been up at COP.
All that and so much more as Dan talks us through his story and journey to date. Dan's story really is all action from start to finish, with him starting an entrepreneurial business at a very young age and seeing opportunity as it came his way. His journey is a wonderful example of what you can achieve with tenacity, adaptability and a creative mind. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like and a share across your favourite social networks. Let's share these amazing stories as far as we can. Enjoy! Hello and welcome to the next episode of Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street. Today, nearly 100 episodes in, we make our first foray into the world of tech, and I can't actually believe I'm saying that. But anyway, we welcome the CEO of not one but two tech-focused businesses within hospitality, that being Toggle and Airship, platforms used industry-wide from casual dining to hotels and everything in between. I am, of course, talking about the fabulous Dan Brookman. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. I'm really, really well. It's Friday. It's not raining.
Yeah.
It's a bit chilly. I cycled into my office in Sheffield this morning and warmed up and ready to crack on with the day.
That's a good way to start the day. Get the juices flowing before you get into creative space.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the nights are drawing in. I think that's the word or the phrase.
Yep. Bloody miserable. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not my favourite time of year, truthfully. I suffer a little bit with the seasonal adjustment disorder. So I have one of those big bright lights that just throws some vitamin D at me as I stare into it in the morning for 20 minutes.
Really?
I struggle with it a little bit. Yeah.
Right. Do you know what? That's it's funny you say it. Well, it's not funny, but it's strange that you say that, because yesterday I had a conversation with somebody who said exactly the same thing. And until they'd brought it up, I had never even known that it was a thing.
Yeah. I think that it's one of those things that's actually just got a name now that didn't usually have a name. And people just used to think, fuck, I'm really tired. I'm really, a little bit down and a little bit tired.
Yeah.
You have to excuse me. We are a dog-friendly office. That was a dog barking in the background. If you can
that is absolutely 100% fine by me. I'm a dog person. So, yeah, listeners will just have to accept it. I mentioned at the head there that you're the CEO of two companies, certainly from the outside looking in. We'll come on to all of that in due course, but actually what I'd like to do first is kind of just go all the way back into the beginning of your kind of life and career. And how did you get into hospitality in the first place?
Yeah, so when I was 16, I was working in a pub as a glass collector. It's a pub in Sheffield called the West End. All my mates used to go in there drinking, and I used to work in there as a glass collector, and my brother's mates, who were a bit older than me, worked behind the bar, and it was just near our school. And that was my first foray, really. And then when I turned 18, I worked behind the bar there for a number of years, and I used to work in a place called the Broomhill Tavern, and I did some work for Tetley's at outdoor events, doing some serving for those guys.
Right.
And then I was working for Next at the same time, selling ladies' wear, which is still,
of course, you were
the best job I've ever had, truthfully. But I was working for Next between about 16 and 21, and I didn't go to university, and I did some college retaking my GCSEs because I failed all but one of my GCSEs. And my parents were determined that I wasn't academically challenged, but it turns out that I am academically challenged. So I was working, and then at 22, I had a house which I was renting out to people, and I was having a game of tennis with a couple of mates at a local school near Hillsborough in Sheffield, and they said, oh, the Hillsborough Baths, the old Hillsborough swimming pool, is up for sale. Somebody should buy it and turn it into a pub. And I thought that that was a great idea. And because I had a house, I also had a credit card. And I went down to the Hillsborough Baths and looked at the number on the front of it and rang this number up and said, how much is it? And they said, it's 120 grand. And I said, oh, okay, how do I buy it? And they said, well, you need to pay us a 5% deposit. And I did on a credit card.
Right.
So at 22, I bought a massive pile of Victorian bricks and tiles, which was derelict
My life.
in Hillsborough and Sheffield.
I tell you what, though, at 22 years old, I mean, is that obviously you didn't have the fear that may come with failure or whatever, which is usually the thing that gets in the way of people kind of taking perceived risk,
Yep.
as it were. But do you think that you always had this kind of entrepreneurial kind of spirit? Because I mean, to do that at 22 years old, that's phenomenal.
Yeah, I definitely had. I mean, at 17, I wrote a board game for the launch of the Super Tram in Sheffield. I was reasonably entrepreneurial prior to that. My parents had a furniture manufacturing business. They used to make kitchens for farmers,
Right.
and it was near our house up on the outskirts of Sheffield. And on the weekend, I used to go up there and make things out of wood. And and then when my parents were going to the agricultural shows with their trailers selling their kitchens, I'd be there selling the stuff that I'd made out of wood. And it was we lived quite a hand to mouth sort of existence in our childhood. Myself, my brothers, my parents. It was my parents would just started their business, and we lived through their pain of them growing their own business through the highs, the lows, the recessions, the interest rates, the bad payers, the employee problems, all of that sort of stuff. And I think that just desensitized me to fear.
Right, and because it could have gone the other way as well, I suppose. You could have looked at it and gone, "God, I'm never doing that."
Yeah, I think that because I didn't have I'd not been to university. I didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do. I think I just knew I wanted to work for myself. So, the Hillsborough Baths, I can't even remember back at the time. I remember it being really quick. They said it's up for sale. I went down to the building. I think originally I was in business with those guys who are still my best mates. And they dropped out. They were both in careers, working for banks, and they've been to university. And it looked like, the whole thing looked like it was a bit nuts. Truthfully, I'm a 22-year-old guy. I'm basically opening a live music venue in probably one of the roughest parts of Sheffield. There'd not been any new licenses in Sheffield for 20 years. The police were chuckling at me. Yeah, they thought it was hilarious. The planners thought it was hilarious. The papers thought it was hilarious. But yeah, once I've got the bit between my teeth, truthfully, I rarely let go.
So it's one of those things that you've got now. You're in, and failure is kind of not an option.
Yeah, not an option. Yeah. So I put my deposit down, and then I went for change of use. And bear in mind here that my parents were designers. We had drawing boards at home. We had an office with 3 or 4 designers in it. My brother's a designer still.
Yeah.
And I'd done some work for him as a draftsman, so I could actually take the plans off the council of this swimming pool, and I could sit at home at a drawing board and actually map out what I thought it was going to look like, and they helped me. Yeah, I got a lot of help from my parents.
Great that they were actually hugely supportive. It sounds like as well. Then it wasn't a case of, Dan, you're a nutter, stop what you're doing immediately.
Yeah, no, we didn't have that sort of relationship that they could have said that to me.
Right, okay.
Truthfully, I left home at 16. I'd bought a house when I was 17. Right. By the time I was 22, I was quite not disengaged. My mum is Anne and my dad is Terry. I've called them Anne and Terry since I was about 10 years old. Because working together when we used to go to the showgrounds to Burley Horse Trials or Chatsworth selling kitchens, they thought it was more professional if we called them Anne and Terry rather than mum and dad around people. And that sort of stuck, truthfully. So they supported me in what I wanted to do. Whether it was humouring me or whether they thought I would succeed, I don't know. But they did support me. So we got to like a year in, basically, and I'd done the change of use. I'd been to court. I'd got the license. It took 2 days. I was up against the diocese in Sheffield. So the diocese had a house behind us, the vicarage behind us, and they basically went against me head on. So where I was collecting a petition and getting people's names on there to support it, they were doing exactly the same thing. And they were spinning up lies about me being a nightclub. And I said, no, I'm a live music venue. And it all got really messy in the end. And there was public hearings and there was TV cameras. And I remember being in a working men's club and I was sat with the local Labour councillor, Helen Jackson, on one side and the Lib Dems on the other. And they were supporting me because I was talking with quite a lot of ambition about building something for the community with a, and I meant it. We did do tea dances in the day. We did host community groups. We did take the biggest building in the centre of Hillsborough, which was a completely run-down area, and breathe new life into it. So I had a passion about me. But I did this. I remember doing this public speaking and being at the front of this big hall. Loads of people there, and Calendar TV were there, the local TV company. And I said, I'm gonna build a live music venue. We're gonna bring people into Hillsborough. We're gonna bring students into Hillsborough. And some guy standing up at the back, going, "You bring fucking students down here, I'll rip their heads off."
Charming.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
So it wasn't well received by everyone.
Then. No, not at all. I mean, this was it's quite it's the sort of place where, and I do love Hillsborough. It's like the people there are pretty amazing. You grow up in a terraced house, you marry the girl or the guy across the road, you move in next door, and you've got these streets which are sort of dominated by families.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of community about it. So. It's a little bit nuts, truthfully, and there's quite a lot of violence, and I learned a lot in a really short period of time.
I'll bet, yeah.
But at the end of the 12-month period, I hadn't managed to raise the $500,000, so I'd just run up loads and loads of credit card debt. I'd burnt through God knows how much money getting my license and building scale models and all sorts of stuff, and I put so much time into it. And my house, I turned a room into my house, into my office, and I got this scale model and all the pictures on the walls. And this kid turned up to rent a room off me, and he was Irish, and he's come over from Belfast to do his final year of law, or Ballymena, to his final year of law, and he turned up in a Golf GTI, and like tall, wiry, specky kid, and he basically said, "Oh, what's this?" And I said, "Oh, I've been trying to open this pub." This live music venue, and I bought this swimming pool, and he was like, "Oh, it looks amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, it's amazing, but I'm going to give the keys back next week because I can't raise the money." And I'd been to the banks and the breweries and everybody in between. And he said, "Oh, you show it me." And we jumped in his car and went down, and I unlocked this padlock, and he walked in, and he was just swearing and swearing and swearing. He was like, "How much are you going to do?" And I said, "We're projecting 600K first year and 800 second and £1 million third year," and went through the numbers with him. And he said, "This is incredible." And he kept saying, "It's incredible. It's incredible." After about 15 minutes, he said, "I'm going to get you the money." And I'm like, "What?" Yeah. I met him about 2 hours before. He said, "I'm going to get you the money." And I was like, okay. And we got back, and he got on the phone, and a week later, or about 4 days later, his dad and his brothers came over, and it turned out that his family owned the largest catering business in Ireland, and they owned about 40 pubs and most of Ballymena.
Right.
And they got me the money. They guaranteed a mortgage with the Bank of Ireland, and about 3 weeks after that, we'd extended the period with the owners of the property. And £500,000 landed in my account, and I got on with opening a pub.
And you went off to Brazil.
Yeah, yeah, off to Brazil. Yeah.
Well, that's brilliant, though. I mean, thank goodness for people like you, because that's you've had a vision for something that nobody else has had a vision for. Okay, you've put yourself into quite a treacherous position financially, but also then as luck would have it, somebody comes along at the right time, and you're able to kind of get that last piece of the jigsaw to make it a reality. But actually, the importance of these regeneration projects cannot be underestimated, I think.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I completely agree. Yeah, Daniel Davies and New Brighton. I mean, geez, that guy, he's taken a whole town. And he's slowly working his way through it and revitalizing it. It's so important. And,
Yeah.
I've heard people talk about placemakers before, and it's weird. I'm sat in an urban splash building. So we bought offices in this brutalist block of flats that overlook Sheffield called Park Hill. And it's incredible. The space is incredible. And,
Mm.
it's so important that people breathe life into old buildings and try and change areas, really.
Yeah, and critically there, getting the support, I suppose, of local council as well. But at the end of the day, why would they not want to turn something that's rotting into something that's got life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that their main fear at the time was all around me just selling out and it becoming a nightclub, or it
Yeah,
just becoming another drinking hole. And we were true to our word. It was quite good. It cost a lot of money. The weekends, thankfully, were rammed full of drinkers, and then in the week it allowed us to do live music and to put on our tea dances and to do community stuff. And
yeah,
and it was great. It's great fun.
yeah. So how long did you have that?
So I had it for 7 years, and
Right,
yeah, I worked it for 7 years, and in that time, after about year three, I bought my partner out, bought John out of the business, and I brought in another partner, a local landlord who I'd worked for, to give me a hand and also to grow. So we opened a venue in Chesterfield. So the Coors Brewers got in touch and said, "We've got a location for you, and we'll help you out with it. Do you want it?" And we opened a second venue called Bar Rocket in Chesterfield, and it was a little spirits bar, 200 capacity, and
right.
it was truthfully, it was a fucking nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. We'd misread it completely, and we thought that the people of Chesterfield would welcome something a little bit more premium. And I remember we overspent on the fit out of it. We didn't have controls in place. We pulled a manager out of a posh cocktail bar in Birmingham and overpaid them.
Right.
We'd just not done a good job of it. And after about 9 months, we sold it on, and we lost probably about 300,000 or 400,000 pound. And it was one of those lessons that, and I wasn't very good at learning lessons, truthfully. I was a bit all over the place. And we then took a Enterprise Inns lease in Sheffield City Centre and opened the art room, which was a really nice sort of piano bar come lunch venue, and struggled in the evenings but was great in the day. And that was all right, and it ticked over. But it was an old building, and Enterprise Inns wouldn't put money into it. It's a bit of a typical story, really. So every time we were painting a wall or changing something round, we were doing it at we were just improving their property, and they wouldn't help.
Mm.
And at the same time, I opened up some. I did a record label and bought some rehearsal rooms and set up a music producer in a room because I was in love with live music. And I set up
Right.
a couple of ringtones and graphics companies and a little web agency. I bought a ton of domain names, and I ended up moving into like an office on my own in a business park, and I was just running this crazy empire from it. And it was a bit, it was a bit out of control. My accountants used to come in every week and just go, Jesus, like just shoeboxes of cash moving around. Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, what era are we in now? This is sort of
Yeah,
early
so we're up to
2000s.
2003 was when I fire sold. So I turned 30 and I couldn't spin the plates any longer, and I'd got problems in Hillsborough at the Deep End, which was the name of the swimming pool, and
Right.
had my eye off the ball, and I'd got problems with door staff, and people had started going into town actually. So people, even though it's only about 4 miles to the city centre to Sheffield, it had always been quite a community there. But then people actually on Saturday nights started getting on the tram and going into town. And it was a big change, that, because actually, now we're going to have to work harder to try and keep people in
Yeah.
in and around. But I'd run out of steam. I'd got picked up some really bad habits, and I'd turned 30, and it was all crumbling around me in a quite horrific manner. So in a very short period, about 6 months, I fire sold the companies, and the last business that I'd invested in was called Power Text, and that is what Airship is today.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So in 2003, we set up a company called PowerText, and it was a bulk text message provider for nightclubs. And my door team worked at Gatecrasher for Simon Rain. So we used to finish at the deep end, and a massive entourage of us would go down to Gatecrasher, dance the night away. And I got to know Simon Rain, and Rob Marser, who's my CTO here now. He came to me and said, "Oh, have you ever used text messaging?" And he was working for Promise up in Newcastle and Punana and people. And we set up a company. I just chucked 25 grand in and said, let's set up a company. And he'd got the name PowerText already. And we created basically bought loads of computers and plugged SIM chips in the back of them. And we did bulk text messaging for every promoter in the land, every nightclub operator, all sorts of different people. And we set out on a journey to be a tech business. We didn't really know what we were, but that's what we did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that I'm not just going to use that the rest is history thing, because we've got a lot more to cover yet. But I find that really quite cool. That is almost a full circle type situation. That's
it's strange when you're young and you've got that energy and you're pretty indestructible. And although you emotionally, I can remember it being really, I mean, it was so stressful. I couldn't even imagine some of the stories I could tell you about that time between the age of 22 to 30, even before the deep end opened, the Sheffield licensees insisted I got experience. So I did my BII and became a landlord. Enterprise Inns were really kind to me, and they gave me a pub in Sheffield called the Bellevue. This is while I'm building the deep end. And they put me in there as a landlord on £20 a week, £20 rent a week. So it had been shut. And it was in, again, a bit of a rough part of Sheffield. But I worked in there for 7 months, and I took out the snooker table, and I may as well have had an affair with every bloke's wife in the village, I took out the snooker table that had been in this pub for 100 years or something as my first act, and put tables and chairs.
Not a popular decision then.
Not a popular decision. But the pub did really well. But yeah, I mean, I remember being about 3 months in, and Friday night, and my decorator, I live around the corner from it, strangely, and my decorator had come in and done loads of work. So, it's my daughter's birthday and her auntie's birthday. Can they come in and have a joint party? So I said, yeah, come on, let's do it. Let's have a party. And we made a bit of a dance area, and I got a DJ in and some lights. And they turned up with buffets of food, and then about 100 people piled in, and everything was great. And, it was just a great atmosphere. And there was a guy that had been coming in pretty much from when I'd reopened this pub called Alan. And Alan's a cage fighter. So, is a bare knuckle fighter. And he used to sit
useful to have on your side.
Absolutely. And he used to sit at the end of the bar every day and regale stories of stuff that had happened to him. And, he'd have 3 or 4 pints, and then he'd wander off. But he was always sat on the bar. And it got to 11 o'clock, 10 to 11. I rang the bell, and the guy came over, the decorator came over and said, "Come on, Dan, we're having a great time. It's great. Come on, let's just have another hour." And obviously all the pubs in the area did Afterbird. It's just a thing. You shut the curtains, you shut the front doors, you open the back door, and you carry on. So I'm like, Of course we can. Let's just, it's great. Everyone's having fun. I've had a couple of pints. It's great. So we carry on. It gets to 12 o'clock, and I ring the bell again, and he's like, "Come on, it's brilliant. Let's just carry on. Another hour. And I'm just seeing this money mount up in the till. The till's probably never seen so much cash, truthfully.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, go on then. We'll have another hour. And it got to about 12:30. And when there's a problem, when there's a silence, when everything goes quiet, you need to worry, basically.
Yeah.
And everything went quiet. And the room sort of parted like a wave. And this family split into 2 each side of the room. And then the daughter just saw her run across the room and headbutt her auntie. Like proper.
My
headbutt.
life.
Yeah. And then it was like 2 Scottish clans coming together in this massive fight. And
but this is all family members.
Yeah, all family members. And they literally, like, something had been said. and they literally came together in the biggest scrap you've ever seen. And it was like one of those cowboy films with them hitting each other with chairs, and sausage rolls and vol au vents and cake and stuff being thrown, and some like old grannies in the corner cackling away and chucking like sandwiches in as the rest of the family fought. And they fought for about 20 minutes, which in a fight is a really long time. And all of the time, I'm coming out, and I think that the greatest thing about being a landlord, and still something, and I was out with a mate last week, and he said, I can't believe, because I'm not a fighter, you know, I'm not hard. I'm like, it's not me at all. But when you run into a fight and shout landlord, landlord, and push people apart, and it's something we were taught when we did the BII thing, that you need to assert that you're the landlord, because people have this respect. Like kids have respect for teachers. We all have a respect for people have a respect for landlords, especially because they want to drink in that pub, you know. So anyway, shouting landlord, landlord, and I broke it up and pushed people out the front door, and the police had been called at this point, and the police were there and asking to come in, and I was like, you're not coming in, it's fine, we've got a handle on it. And then Alan, the cage fighter, you know, got like a bloody sausage roll or something at him on his forehead, and he was like off his stool like a shot, and me shouting no, 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 running towards him, and him just literally piling into somebody. But yeah, we cleared them all out, and there was somebody broke the shoulder, and there was a few. I got smacked in the eye in the end by a lady as I pushed her through the door.
Right.
The police. I was sat at the end of the night, and I was sat on this settle in a bay window, and head in hands, and the police stood in front of me, and the lights on, and the food everywhere, and the place just smashed to pieces. And these three policemen were like giggling and just going like, you're in so much trouble. And like one's like, do you not know who that family is? I'm like, I have no idea who they are. It's my decorator. And they're like, you're just an idiot, you know. And the licensing police called me in the next day. He said, well, you'll not do that again, will you? And it's like, they honestly, they just wanted me to, they knew I was going to screw it up, and they knew I was going to learn a really valuable lesson. And they said, if you do that when you open your pub in Hillsborough, we'll take your license off you and it'll be over.
Right.
And they lesson learned, but
they're cold words, aren't they? And
they are,
and they have that power as well.
Absolutely. But it was there was so many instances over that period with the police and with individuals, which, you know, a little bit terrifying, truthfully. You know, football fans and, you know, running battles outside with Sheffield Wednesday idiots and other teams, you know, that idiot faction that they have, these football teams, and they used to have, you know, I remember there was a snooker club up the road from me, and at Burnley, I think it was, broke into the snooker club, and they nicked all the snooker balls, and then when the fan tram came past with the Wednesday fans on, they just jumped out and pelted it with snooker balls. I mean, it's geez. You know, it's just terrifying, really. But anyway, on the whole, it was a great. It was all good fun. It was fast paced. We burnt money. We made money. We burnt money. You know, and we were quite advanced with our tech. It's worth pointing out. And we also had. I'm a marketeer, and I'd built this board game and designed this board game, and I'd designed this company called Spot as well, which was about sales promotion on target. It was about mailing things through people's doors, which was relevant to their community. Anyway, so I did this Deep Ender card, which was like a loyalty card, but it got me around a licensing issue around membership, because the licensing said I couldn't discount. So I created a membership, and then I could do discounts to members in the same way as a working men's club runs.
Clever.
Yep. And I'd sold it for £20 each. And I'd sold about 2,000 of them. And what I did, I went around all the local shops and businesses, and I said, if you want to put this sticker in your window, and it was a picture of the Deep End card in somebody's hand. I said, then if you want to do a discount for my customers, I'll tell my customers when I write to them, literally on paper and pen. When I printed a letter and sent it in the post, I'd put, you've got a discount at the barber's or at the clothes shop or at the charity, wherever. And it built quite a bit of community, but I had nowhere to put the data.
Right.
So when the kid approached me to start PowerText, we hired a computer scientist from Sheffield University to build the platform. and we first loaded it with the deep end data. Then we started text messaging my customers. So we were quite tech advanced as a business. We had an amazing website because we did entertainment. So bands on Tuesday night, it was Can You Jam? And it was, why play with other people why play with yourself when you can play with other people? And we had this massive stage. The back room held 300 people, and the stage was like 10 meters wide, 10 meters long, 2 meters wide, and we filled it with musical instruments. And we invited people down to jam with musicians, and we'd record it and we'd put it on our website, and then we'd have bands on and we'd put snippets of the bands on, and we did a quiz night, an interactive quiz night called Dave Van Key's Big Night Out, which was like rubber chickens and stage props and stuff. And we'd record that as well. So we were quite tech advanced anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. So are you kind of now reaching the end of your operator life
I am
at this point in time?
Yeah. So I'm turning. I locked the doors on the art room. I'd already sold the deep end. Locked the doors on the art room. I walked down the road and I unlocked the doors on the new office, which was for Power Text, with about 3 members of staff, including Rob. And we started our Power Text journey. And the first 3 years of that was a bit intense because basically we were a really early SaaS business. We were about bulk messaging of people. This was before MailChimp. It was before loads of other platforms out there. And we were plugged, we'd win a customer, plug in a SIM chip, wire it up to a server, and then they'd be able to log in, upload a list of mobile numbers, and send out a bulk text message. And we did it for 200 or 300 businesses, and it was museums and hairdressers and all sorts of things. But we didn't make any money, and we were just losing money, hand over fist. And I didn't have any
small
money.
detail.
Yeah. And I didn't have any money left. I'd lost all of my money. I lost my house and my cars and my girlfriend.
Crikey.
Oh yeah, I'd completely burnt everything at that point.
My
I
word.
was starting again. Starting.
Yeah.
So we'd brought in some non-execs, and they'd helped us get some funding, and we got some funding, and they told us to specialize. So we specialized, and we got rid of all of our customers, and we kept the ones that were actually generating us some cash, and we started generating cash. And we were working for people like Paul Kinsey at Nexum Leisure, working for Simon Rain at Gatecrasher, and working for the guys at God's Kitchen and Ministry and at Promise, and all the nightclub operators. Aaron Meller at Tokyo Industries was and is still a customer, And yeah, we just worked in the nightclub world and university world, and we did text TV, and we did text to jump the queue, and we did premium rate text messaging as well, and also text broadcast. And we got then to 2007, 2008, and the smartphone arrived, and also 2009, the recession. And when the smartphone arrived, it killed SMS, but it then brought email back in, and we'd already built email into our platform. And by this point, we're working for people like Miles Duran and Barracuda Group. So we'd got a good few hundred locations under our belts. And we then lost Barracuda. They went bust. They went to Banwell House, and then they went into administration. We lost them as a customer. And that was, again, it was another one of those lessons, which is, unfortunately, we didn't learn from it. But they were about 52% of our revenue at the time. And then nightclubs and the smoking ban and all of those changes just changed the industry and the sector completely.
Yeah.
And at that point, we sort of pivoted again and became an agency. And I'm as I say, a born marketeer. So I'd just be doing the creative and the content and the plans. We got into Facebook, and we were, before Facebook pages, it was just profiles. And then Facebook released the pages. I don't know if you remember that. And
I do, yes.
All of a sudden, then people had 5,000 friends on a profile called the brand name, and they had to migrate them to their Facebook page. Otherwise, they'd lose them all. So we ran campaigns to help people migrate, and then we did lots of tutorials, and we'd go into JW Lee's and speak to the managers about how to get the most out of Facebook and Twitter. And, we were just across the industry working for loads and loads of companies, but really broadly. We always had this tech, but we were really broadly working for them. And, we started doing content and creative and websites, and we still had PowerText running. We then rebranded that into Airship. As we're doing less and less text messaging in about 2012. And we just ran as an agency pretty much through to sort of 2018. And we had people in the business doing lots and lots of project work, and we were selling hours. And I'm the commercial director. Rob was the MD at that point, and we'd sort of been running as a lifestyle business, I guess you could say.
Yeah. So that's one arm of what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah.
How did Toggle come about?
Yeah, so 2018, we are an agency. We've got Airship. It's a tech platform. Within Airship, there's a feedback platform called Feedback Desk. There's an inquiry platform called Inquiry Desk. There's a gift card platform called Airship Gifting. And then, and they're all working off the same tech stack. And we built Airship Gifting for Jeremy and Tim at Living Ventures Restaurants. We rolled it out to Brewhouse and Kitchen and Red's True Barbecue and a couple of other operators. I think we had 8 customers on it. But I'd always had this thing about gifting, that actually pre-visit revenue was something that was going to be a thing for hospitality, and that it didn't need to be a preserve of Pizza Express or Ask or Zizi. Everybody could do it basically, and it was going to be sold by technology. So in 2018, Airship as an agency employed about 35 people, and our biggest customer was Conviviality PLC, and we used to manage the data for Bargain Booze across their 600 stores.
Right.
One of our other customers was a well-known late night group that's still a customer today, with about 70 locations. But we had a team that was designing email and designing content for both of those businesses, and it was about 65% of our revenue. And in a period of about 4 weeks, Conviviality PLC went bust, unraveled spectacularly. From being an absolute darling of the industry at about 1.6 billion turnover, they unraveled because somebody put a 0 somewhere incorrectly on a spreadsheet.
Crikey.
And the other customer, they pulled their budget, so they kept their data with us and their email marketing provision with us, with Airship, but they pulled their budget. So Rob stepped down as MD and to take some time off, and I stepped in as CEO. And my first act was to let 70% of our staff go, basically, and make them redundant. And because we'd been running as a lifestyle business, we were broke. We didn't have, when you're running as a lifestyle business, generally you don't really have cash reserves, because you're kind of drawing it out of the business, and also you're employing people to do your job. And it's a little bit more hand to mouth. It's hard to build something that can scale. You win a customer, you employ somebody. You win a customer, you employ somebody. You're just
you
running
lose a customer.
You lose a customer. You then right, you got to fill a gap really quickly, or you start losing cash.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig, So I wrote it on a post-it note and chucked it on the wall and just said, we're never going to sell another hour ever again. And we'd already been talking about turning ourselves into more of a SaaS play, and we just accelerated that. So we were looked at the product world within hospitality technology, and we still decided that gifting we thought was the way forward. So we built Toggle and we released it. We released it in October 2018. And we migrated our 8 original customers over to the new platform. And I wrote a business plan, and we went and won funding in 2019. October 2019, we got funding from the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. And truthfully, Phil, without HMRC, we would have been bust in 2018.
Wow.
But we owned our own building. We had a mortgage on it, but there was some equity in it. So HMRC had a little bit of comfort. They were our main debt once we'd gone through the redundancy payments and got our overheads right the way down.
Yeah.
And they just used to come see me every month, and I had an amazing bookkeeper, Claire Spicer, who supported me as well. And a very emotional time, truthfully, because you're sprinting. And I remember being in London in 2000 and early 2019, and I literally, no money. The company had no money. We were down at our overdraft limit, and I had no access to money. I remember ringing Claire up and saying, you need to chase somebody and get them to pay us, because I need to get across town. I need to get on a tube, And
my God, yeah.
I don't think people who haven't worked for themselves, and you'll know this, that you live so close to the bone, and when things disappear, it can be incredibly tough, especially. I'll always gamble on my business. I'll always be like business first, personal life second, really.
Right.
It's just how I am, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably wrong, truthfully. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's really stressful. But anyway, we won Leon and we won Davies and we started winning customers, and I'd simplified our proposition, and I just went back out to hospitality and said, Airship used to be really complicated. It's really now simple. We're a data company. We understand recency and frequency of visit. We're fixed price. We won't punish people for doing well. And
Mm.
Toggle's just about generating pre-visit revenue, and it's fixed price, and you can do £1 million through me, and I'll just charge you per location. And we came to market with something that was very fair. And it seems to have really paid off. We also got our funding in from Mercia, who is Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund, and they're distributing money for the British Business Bank because we're based in Sheffield, so we can employ people. And then the pandemic has been very good for us.
Really? I was going to ask you about that, so I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, so I wasn't, we got our money in October 2019. We were burning our way through it. And when March came 2020, our burn rate was really high and we still had a buffer, but I wasn't going to be beaten by a pandemic. So I went to LinkedIn and said to LinkedIn, to my network, if anybody wants Toggle, crack on. We'll not charge anything until the doors reopen. And loads
Right.
of people just signed up with us, like loads and loads and loads of brands signed up with us. And I didn't furlough my team. We were really agile. We built lots of functionality into the platform, and the platform's just not looked back. We've just met the demand, and we've been ultra supportive, and we've ripped up lots of invoices, and we've given the platform away for free, and it's just grown and grown. We've added in retail to it. We've added in pay it forward. We've put lots of tools into the platform. We've integrated new partners, and we've grown about 400% in the year.
Brilliant.
On Toggle. And Airship, again, people were still using us. We weren't like a Wi-Fi or a table booking system that couldn't be used. Everybody could still use our platforms, but we didn't charge. Didn't continue to charge 100%. And again, we simplified. We've run some really cool campaigns. We did this Comeback Strong campaign in early 2021, which was a real success. We signed up 100 customers through it, and we've expanded our team. So we've doubled the team we were now. I raised another £500,000 from Northern Powerhouse, which I plugged in a couple of months ago, and we're just continuing to grow at really about a customer a day. Signs up with
Wow.
us. I think 4 customers signed up with us yesterday, so about 60 or 70 locations yesterday on both
Fantastic.
platforms.
That's brilliant as well, and it sounds like you've now got, I suppose, a model which is far more manageable slash scalable slash controllable than perhaps it was before.
Yeah, it's just about the tech. It's just about building functionality into the tech that makes operators' lives easier.
Yeah.
It gives them better customer engagement, gives them more revenue, gives that customer a better experience. And the beauty of Toggle, we've just got launched with a hotel company in New Zealand via Tavalis. So Tavalis are a partner, Zonal are a partner, Access are a partner, and
Brilliant.
Comtrex and Polaris and Wireless Social and Feed It Back, and loads of tech companies integrate with either Airship or Toggle. And we get on well with them. And we're agnostic, and, it's about the customer. And when it's about the customer, because for hospitality operators, it's about their teams and it's about their customers. That's their business.
Yeah.
And that's what we're supporting.
Yeah. No, bravo. I mean, it's a wonderful success story in the face of a time which the world has been in a place of adversity,
Yep.
really. And I salute you, and I wish you all the very best for the next phase. It sounds like you've got an exciting period ahead of you.
I've got an incredible team, is what I have, Phil, and
Yeah.
they have. We feed each other, and when the pandemic struck and when Boris announced track and trace, we were the first to market with a track and trace product built on as a module of Airship that rolled out in the end in 5 days.
Wow.
We built it, and it ended up rolling out to 13,000 locations worldwide, of which about 12,000 were in the UK.
Yeah.
Weatherspoons, Pret, Costa, and I couldn't have done that without the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been mental.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way of summing up most people's lives in the last 6 months,
Yeah. Yep.
for sure, especially within hospitality. It sounds like your journey is very much one of you didn't anticipate that you would go into the tech space,
No.
but opportunity kind of presented itself to you, and you find yourself where you are now.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do. Truthfully, I think one thing led to another, and I did try in my 20s. I recorded some bands. We produced some music. We published some books. We did the ringtones and graphics. Had a crack at selling domain names. We opened some venues. I served some food. I served some beers and cocktails. And I
Yeah,
think that it was about at the end of that when I was burnt and a little bit broken. It was like, what's left? And the thing that was left was the technology. And I think that that's the thing that I thought, right, okay, this is what I can do.
yeah. Well, yeah, you clearly landed in a space that suits you for
Yep.
sure. Not bad for somebody who's academically challenged.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one thing I love about your journey though is that you definitely don't have a kind of background and a plan, as it were, that conforms to the system per se. And I use that in inverted commas. You have literally, you've kind of lived life in front of you. What's in front of me right now? There's an opportunity. Let's give it a crack. And look where you are now. It's a wonderful journey.
Yeah, it is, and I've been very, very lucky. And I think that if for anybody listening to this that's sort of starting out, or even that's stumbling a little bit, they've just got to speak to people. You've just got to speak to people around you.
Yeah,
Because what's changed, I think, in 25 years of me, I've now worked for myself for about 30 years, I think, as sort of self-employed running businesses, is the support network nowadays is absolutely mental. I mean, it's like people want to help you. It used to be that people would cheer failure in the early days, and not in a nasty way. It was just, it was just, oh yeah, oh, they always had ideas above the station. It was always
yeah.
like they were always, well, I don't know what you were playing at. It was always going to fail. Whereas now it's like, oh, actually, I think I know somebody who might be able to help you, or have you thought about this, or have you thought about that? And I think that as humans, we're just more broadly supportive of each other than we used to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And actually, that kind of plays nicely into the fact that you now find yourself you mentor people, as I understand it. You've gotten yourself into the world of business mentoring.
And I've done it for 10 years now, and I do it for Sheffield Council and Sheffield Universities, and an amazing organisation called the Wasco Brown Foundation here in Sheffield. But also recently in the last year for Plan B as well, with Holly and Anne and Emma. And I think that mentoring, I think I've made so many mistakes, Phil. Like,
Yeah,
honestly, I mean, you couldn't count them. And if you just sit down with somebody for an hour who's starting a business, or thinking about a business, or in a business, or who's the manager in a business, and listen to them, and then just give them a little bit of your experience, of your knowledge for them to
yeah.
think about and to reflect on, you can save people a lot of time, money, and grief.
Oh God, for sure, absolutely. And but mistakes and failure are part of the journey, right? I mean, it doesn't matter how much you plan. Stuff comes along, and it's how you handle these moments rather than sort of, I suppose, planning for failure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is, yeah. And look, I think that the pandemic, it was very emotional to start with. There was no rule book for it. There was nothing written down. There was nothing. We couldn't turn to a YouTube video that says how to handle your business
Yeah,
in a pandemic. It was pretty much every man for themselves.
yeah,
So yeah, I think that we've all learned a little bit more, and I think that there's some learnings from the pandemic, especially around people,
mm,
that and culture, and about work-life balance, and some things that we've learned that we need to carry forward.
yeah.
Definitely, especially around our teams.
Absolutely. I think that's been the biggest win of all of this is this kind of just an introspection moment of, looking at how we were doing things and what were we doing to the people around us, and actually were we getting it all right? No. So let's fix the things that we weren't getting right. And that's, like any change, that takes some time to change hearts and minds. But I think, we are going to be better off on the back of this.
Yeah.
It's just this sort of this time at this point in time where it's the change is now and it's here and it's happening, that it can feel tough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I definitely think employers need to lean into it. And I think that those that do as well, that build on their culture around this and embrace it as a way forward, the millennials and the Generation A, it will be, it's their future,
Yeah.
It's their future. And when I sit down and interview 18, 19-year-olds, and we've got some Kickstarters in this business and we're getting another 2 in the next couple of weeks, they're interviewing you. You're not interviewing them.
Yeah.
They're going, tell me about your company. What can you do for me? And yeah, there's a bit of learning there that needs to go on for them, which is actually we're about making profit. And, business is about profit, as well as about growth and as well as about culture and employing people and customers and all of that and advancing tech, but it needs to make money. So there is a trade-off here with people, that if you do provide a lifestyle, if you do provide a balance, and if you do provide an amazing culture and an opportunity to grow personally, then there needs to be a trade-off that people also then provide back the effort, the ambition, the passion in equal measure.
Totally. You've hit the nail on the head there. I think that, it's just a mutual respect and mutually beneficial arrangement. That's the way that it should be, that the individual helps the company get to where it needs to go, and the company helps the individual get to where they want to go.
Exactly.
It's not difficult, is it?
It's not.
I mean, it is, but
yep.
the principle is not difficult.
Nope.
But the execution can be tricky.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot more companies, a lot more people who are very much more focused on this now, and that's the way it should be. And the fact of the matter is, the more good people we have at the helms of good businesses that are making good profit, the more good can be done in the world. That's just a simple knock-on effect of everything coming together and working together.
Yeah, agreed.
Solving some problems today.
Yeah, very good. Love it. We should have been up at COP.
Indeed, yeah, absolutely. One final thing before I let you get on your merry way, just because I looked at this and it made me chuckle. You're a chicken wing enthusiast.
I love a chicken wing. That's although I should probably update that really, because I've been trying not to eat meat between Monday and Friday.
Very good. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I love a chicken wing. I love a wing shack, a wing stopper, anything. Every time I see it on the menu, I just enjoy eating them. I don't know. There's something very good about them. Go to Yard and Coop in Manchester. Try their chicken wings. It's insane.
Very good. So you're the chicken wing aficionado. Been there, done that all across the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Brilliant. No, look, it's been fabulous to finally get this time with you. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about what your company's doing, how they could benefit from it, etc., what's the best method for them to reach out to you?
Drop me an email. I'm just dan@airship.co.uk.
Excellent. As simple as that.
Simple as
that. And well, thank you very, very much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat. What a cracking journey you've got.
Thanks, Phil.
And the big lessons are just be comfortable with making mistakes.
Yeah, perseverance. You just got to crack on.
Yeah, brilliant.
Thanks
so much, Dan.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Cheers.
You. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye. And there we have it. What a high-energy story from Dan, proving that anything is possible with an action-orientated mind and off-the-charts tenacity. I wish him and his teams continued success. We'll be back next Wednesday with more stories from hospitality, but until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.